is Russ Kommensberger, and I'm a special agent with the CN Railroad Police. A lot of people don't realize the railroad has its own police department, but we do exist, actually since about 1865, back when the Wild West was booming. They needed some law enforcement protection to protect passengers and freight across the Mississippi, where there was no law enforcement out west of the Mississippi at the time. So it's a very old law enforcement profession. My background in law enforcement, I've been in law enforcement for about 16 years. I was a police officer for several of those years, and then for about 3 years I was a police chief in a community out in the west side of the states. So I chose law enforcement because I did not want to sit behind a desk all day long. I needed something new every single day. And so law enforcement obviously gave me that opportunity. Every single day is something different. The calls are different. While you deal with a lot of the same types of actions and the same types of violations, it's still something different every day, and you get to meet somebody new every single day. So as I come across the crossing here, obviously I'm just making sure that all the signs and everything are in good order. Looking up and down the tracks, see if there's any problems, anybody where they shouldn't be, trespassers or what have you. And then just paralleling the tracks here to see if I've got any other trespassers or issues, something on the tracks that shouldn't be there. And routine yard patrols. Again, we're just looking to see that there's nobody in the yard that shouldn't be here, and if they are, addressing that, making contact with employees, see if they have any concerns out on the property anywhere that we should be addressing and help them out. So every railroad kind of does things a little differently. The focus for the CN is about every 3 hours somebody gets hit by a train in the United States. And so our main focus really is to try and reduce those incidents through education, enforcement, and engineering. So I do a lot of driver's ed classes, go and provide information on the railroad safety message at those driver's ed classes. And as far as enforcement goes, we're looking for the violations around the railroad crossings, right? People going around the gates, people not stopping for the red flashing lights, people not stopping at stop signs, people barreling out in front of a train when it comes through the crossing and not stopping like they should when the train is in hazardous proximity to the crossing. Those are pretty simple violations. And a lot of people don't realize that railroad property is actually private property, and the railroads own it. And it's very, very dangerous to be on railroad property. Again, every 3 hours somebody gets hit by a train, and so our focus there is to get people off of railroad property. There's no good reason to be on railroad property. I know people like to use it as a shortcut, but very clearly you can get hurt very seriously or even killed. Ultimately, we do the same things. We have the same authority in the state of Wisconsin as a deputy sheriff to make arrests, issue citations. All the same authorities that are granted to deputy sheriffs are actually granted to us as well under state law. A lot of people don't realize there's a blue sign at the railroad crossing. We call it the Emergency Notification System sign. And that sign has a DOT crossing number. It's 6 numbers followed by a letter. It's unique to that railroad crossing across the United States. And then obviously we're looking at the rail cars, make sure that there's no issues with those, nobody's climbing on the rail cars. Just basically looking for anything that's out of the ordinary inside the rail yard. The red lights will flash for about 3 to 5 seconds before the gates start to move. The red flashing lights flash about the same amount of time as a yellow traffic light. They're all timed the same based on the speed limit for the roadway. So if the gates start to move, the vehicles should be stopped by the time the gates start to move because they've had ample time to stop. If they were doing the speed limit as they're supposed to, they would have ample time to stop. Additionally, state law requires vehicles to slow down or reduce their speed as they approach intersections, railroad crossings, hills, curves, narrowing in the roadway. There's a whole slew of things that they're required to slow down for, and that's why those yellow signs exist, the advanced warning sign, to give you that heads up that we want you to slow down so that you give yourself a little bit more time to react in case those lights do start to flash. Well, as I said earlier, about every 3 hours somebody gets hit by a train in the United States. And obviously trains go forward and backward on the railroad tracks. They don't swerve, right? We don't have engineers that are driving down the tracks knocking people off of sidewalks. they go forward and backward, and that's the only way that you can really get hit by a train. So if you stay off of railroad property, you never have to worry about getting hit by a train.